How to change captions language. Cómo cambiar el idioma de los subtítulos. Click the settings icon. Haga clic en el icono de configuración. Click captions. Haga clic en subtítulos. Click on auto translate. Haga clic en traducir automáticamente. Choose language y elige idioma.
My name is Charlene Walker. So my story really brings me to organizing. When I was born, I was actually placed for adoption. So I went from the hospital directly to a foster home. And when I ended up in the foster home, I like to say that my foster mom thought I was so cute. She decided to keep me. I was this little chubby baby. And she was much older, really petite Black woman, and all of her friends thought she was crazy. Like, what are you doing with this brand new baby? But she kept me, and it gave me a really unique upbringing growing up during the time of like really the war on drugs in Hillside, which was a teeny tiny town. And we constantly had kids in and out of our house of all nationalities and races. So I grew up with this appreciation just for loving people, no matter who they were. And what was really unique was because there were so many people coming in and out of our house, my mother never really imposed on me a particular faith. Like, she was Christian, but she kept me open to multiple faiths. So I got to learn about all the holidays that she could think of and all of the different faiths, which is very interesting because now I find myself as a Unitarian Universalist where I get to go to church and hear from all of the different faiths. So that's really guided me around like how we love each other, who we are. And throughout my life, I just really saw firsthand all these injustices as I grew up and really started to kind of pull a line to figure out, wait, this stuff is by design, somebody's fault, right? Like, I lost, the first person I ever lost in my life was due to gun violence. And it was my cousin who lived with me and I was a small child, right? And I've had people be incarcerated. And because my mom also did childcare, we lived near a warehouse, she took care of a lot of kids who were undocumented. And then the healthcare system really just has never loved Black women. So I lost my mom and my child due to our healthcare system, and just all of these things compounding one after another really brought me into like being so frustrated, but also knowing because of my faith that there's something better promised, that I need to do something about it. So I started organizing in high school, kind of walked away from it, went to school, came back. And when I really myself lost my child, I decided that not only organizing, which had become a career for me at that point, but it was, let me organize also for things that were important to me specifically. And I started spending all of my time with Faith in New Jersey outside of work. I had been organizing people with disabilities, but then outside of work, we were organizing around driver's licenses. We were organizing around independent prosecutor bill, and just things I was really passionate about. So I would go after work and I would just go to whatever the meeting was, and to the point where I was a leader that was getting developed, even though I had been developing people myself, but just getting developed even more so to really change policy in New Jersey that I was going to feel, that my friends were going to feel, and that my family was going to feel. And I'm grateful for all of that. So Faith in New Jersey actually used to be called CCOP, so Camden Churches Organizing People, which was in Camden, New Jersey. And it was a small grassroots organizing entity where a bunch of faith leaders came together, and they were like, Camden at the time, I think, was like the murder capital of the country. And they just really wanted to see something different for their people. So the congregation started to come together to really start to organize, and they worked around things first as simple as abandoned buildings and having them boarded up, to then progressing to healthcare and worrying about gun violence. Some of the first faith walks that ever existed in our country, of faith leaders walking the streets around gun violence, actually came from CCOP, as well as when they learned some techniques out of Boston, in order to like really move people to start to understand that there were ways to stop burying our children, and that there were programs that actually worked. So they organized, they were able to work even on a higher level for the Affordable Care Act eventually, taking actually our leaders all the way to the White House. And I know one of our old board members, he even has a picture up in his church of him like shaking Obama's hand at some point. But when they wanted to be able to grow and move outside of Camden, they decided to change their name to better reflect being a statewide organization, and united with Faith in Action, which is our national entity, and started organizing not just locally, but statewide and on the federal level. And they've been around ever since. I think like campaigns and issues are really important, but what I like most about Faith in New Jersey is that we are a people-centered organization. It's really about the development of everyday people. And that looks like really seeing someone, like we have a leader right now who recently we were gathering, we've set up, and this is something that I'm very proud of, a base of leaders called the Freedom Defenders. They're all people with a lived experience of mass incarceration. And I really designed this base because I felt like people who had been incarcerated a lot of times had come into spaces really where their story was all that was of value, where they wanted people wanted them to tell their story, but they never actually got to get into the room to negotiate or even like drive a strategy, right? And also what I noticed was like so many people that I love that have been incarcerated also really deserved a space that was just for them, that was about dignity and their development. And since we've developed this space, which is so special and sacred, one of our leaders, he told me, he said, you know, I thank God for Faith in New Jersey. And it just kind of caught me off guard because we were literally going around the room just talking. And he said, you know, he spent, I want to say about 40 of his years in and out of jail, living with substance use disorder. And he said he always thought that there was an ability for there to be something better. And he said because of his faith, he said he gave himself to God, and he had really been pushing for something different. And he said, but he still didn't quite know like where he was going. He just knew he wanted to help other people like him. He said, but then he ran into Faith in New Jersey and really started to talk to me and the organizers. And he was like, wait, I can be part of changing the world so that things that happen to me don't happen to other people. He said he had been so focused on how do I help people once they get home. He said, but how can I make people not even have to go? You know, not even be incarcerated. And what was powerful to me is then he tells the story to everybody in the room, right? And he goes, next thing I know, Faith in New Jersey had me marching the streets of Washington, D.C. on Black Lives Matter Boulevard. And he was like, I thought that was Dr. King. You couldn't tell me anything different. And he said, and then he said, I went through a training and I went and spoke to my member of Congress. And he said, then we come back home and he's like, one of our loved ones in Patterson was shot by the police and all these horrible things were happening. And he's like, I went to Trenton to testify for a piece of legislation in order for it to actually move. He said, all because people started to see me as being human and worthy. So like when I think about Faith in New Jersey, like the issues and the campaigns are important, but it's the fact that you see somebody go from we like to say that there's this bridge that we help people to cross, right? And on one side of the bridge, there's like this hopelessness and all these lies that we've been told about ourselves. And we help people cross the bridge to actually have hope and to actually walk in their power, because everybody has it. Nobody has to be empowered. You have power. It's just we're told we don't. And I think that's the magic of Faith in New Jersey, is seeing that in people, helping people see it in each other, and then actually then deciding what needs to be changed and fighting for it. You know, organizing is hard work, right? It takes special, beautiful people to love people enough to help them to cross that bridge, right? And it takes a lot of time. And I think that oftentimes people want to fund something that's quick, but not transformational. And the transformational stuff happens when you're actually working with people and you're having these conversations and you're pushing them and you're asking them what's getting in your way. How can I help you get out of your own way so you can be the person that you're destined to be, right? But oftentimes funders are like, no, I just need this deliverable, which is like this policy to change, or I need to see this thing happen, but they don't see the transformation and the time that goes in to develop people. Because if we're ever going to get real change, we have to be dedicated to developing people so that there are thousands of people across the state all moving in their own individual pockets, building power together. And the only way that happens is if you fund the organizing well. And that means you fund the development of an organizer, which takes 5 years for an organizer to be a really good organizer, right? Mm-hmm. And you fund them for a lifetime, because that learning is continual, right? And that you fund them well. Organizers shouldn't have to work 2 and 3 jobs and then still do the work, which honestly, most of our work is hearing people's stories, right? And we carry that with us, right? Like, funding needs to include, can we make sure all of our organizers have healthcare, that they have access to mental health, right? That they can live good lives. It should not be that when you want to do good things in this world, that you can only have just enough to eat rice and beans every day and that be it, right? And that we also understand those that are most impacted have to lead, right? They have to be the ones that are developed, but that also requires them to be able to participate. It's hard when the person has 2 jobs to be able to participate in organizing, and then, which is going to take them a couple more hours out their week or out of their month. We need to be able to provide them stipends and have space that they can bring their kids. Like, organizing is a family experience. That means I need childcare when we're having a meeting, right? That means I need interpretation. I need all of these things. It's holistic, it's community, all those things. And that doesn't happen, like, it doesn't just fall out the air. Like, you need funding for that. And I think that that's the largest challenge. Like, we can get past, do people believe in themselves? Can people walk in their power? But we can't do it if we don't have the funding to do it. When I came to our organization, like, because it was so important to me, the work, I ended up taking a pay cut, right? And I struggled with that pay cut for a really long time, even though I technically have multiple jobs. Like, I'm an executive director, but I'm also the grant writer, the fundraiser. I'm also the organizing director, the person who provides coaching, and the lead trainer in our organization, not to mention the liaison between a bookkeeper, an accountant, like all of these things. Yet I'm still expected to excel and be all the way up here with all of these other people who have like these $1 million budgets, and I'm the one that's supposed to be the one that brings the people. You know, it's hard. It's really, really hard. And I can only imagine what my staff have to, put up with or deal with, right? With their own finances, especially if you have a family. Probably get in trouble for saying this, but the way that funding is set up is for us to get actually liberated, or if it's just for things to happen to check off and feel good about, we want a thing. But does that thing get us closer to being free or not, right? Like, oftentimes I feel as though sometimes people fund our continued oppression instead of our actual liberation, right? And that is like when you want to fund the thing that's the quick win because you got to deliver for board, you got to deliver for a newspaper, you got to deliver for all these things. But those things does not make it easier for my family to eat. Those things doesn't make it easier for me to sleep at night, like all of those things, or get someone from standing off of your neck, right? So I think that's one reason. I also think that people often fund the shiny thing. If you have a huge budget, guess what? I have a staff now who works for an organization. He's like, oh my goodness, when I need something written, I've got somebody to write it. I've got somebody to put together the toolkit. I got somebody to pitch it to press. I have somebody for all of these things. And because of that, that means your front-facing persona looks a lot different. And people, like my grandmother used to say, you take care of the squeaky wheel, right? You take care of the thing that you see. But you don't see the fact that my organizer, or that I'll take myself, that I'm working 70 hours a week. You don't see that. You don't see the 20 one-on-one conversations and hours that my organizer spent with somebody. You don't see the 5 hours that it took to plan that meeting and the coaching that happened. You don't see those things. And the things that get funded are things that people also see. And also, I think that there is a level of pure racism when it comes to things, that it is a lot easier. So I'm a Black woman that leads an organization. We will, unfortunately, until this world change, be the most underfunded. I can be the smartest person in the room. I can have the best strategy. I can be the one that everybody else calls in order to learn about things or figure out how we should move. But they will get the funding before I will get the funding, because simply my identity as a person, right? And also because of my identity as a person, I don't have the wiggle room to be anything but unapologetic about what it is that my people need. And people would rather me bite my tongue. People would rather me dim who I am instead of to fight for our actual people. And the truth of the matter is, everything that I do is through a lens of Black liberation, because if Black people are free, everyone will be free. Everyone will get everything. But the level of anti-Blackness, the level of patriarchy, and all the things that we are facing definitely diminishes what especially my organization can get. And also, we're also faith-based. How many people have been hurt by their faith communities? And we're reconciling that. And the people that are part of my organization are the ones that we like to say, show you what faith should look like, how love looks like in public, So we're going up against both of those things.
Can you tell us what that freedom looks like to you?
For me, it looks like those that I love living to their old age to sit on their steps and watch kids play outside and not have to dodge bullets, but to actually see children playing. It looks like being able to decide, not having to like rob Peter to pay Paul, but actually deciding I'm going to do this with my life because I can and because I want to, not because somebody's put a stipulation on what that looks like. It looks like people loving who they love. It looks like people having support. And it looks like people never having to worry about, if I go to the doctor, will I come back out? Will I be here another day? It looks like the ability to live, but also to thrive. I think that good organizing, outside of it being hard, it requires something of everybody that's involved. It's not meant to be comfortable, right? It's not a place where you're supposed to go and be happy 24/7. It's a place where you're supposed to struggle together and grow. And I think that sometimes people always want the easy thing, right? People want the thing that's going to come really quickly, and it's not it. Like, I'm organizing for a future 7 generations from now. Like, that is what I ask myself, and that's how I make my decisions. Will what I am doing right now impact the next 7 generations? If not, guess what? It's not a good use of my time, right? And what I think people need to understand, especially when it comes to faith in New Jersey, is that, you know, we have very limited resources. We really rely on our people. But we can't survive if we don't have adequate funding, right? And we have a vision for a new world. We want to be the ones that help to build that. And we want to enroll people into that vision and help people like actually cultivate it and make it fuller and all of those things. And in order to do that, we have to be willing to go into places sometimes nobody else wants to go, to have conversations nobody wants to have, to like, I can't say how many times, sometimes we have a meeting and like half the room ends up crying, but then at the end, we're all hugging each other, like to do the tough things and the hard things, because anything that's worth it, it's going to be tough and it's going to be hard. But we have the fortitude to keep going, where I think some people need those reminders, right? And to try and always do it in a way where we do no harm and where we are always able to call people forward to do better, like in a restorative way, right? Like, you can't organize and leave people behind. And I think a lot of times people get confused about what organizing is. And organizing for me sometimes is answering my phone at 2:00 in the morning. Sometimes organizing for me is working 6 days in 1 week, as much as I might not want to, but there is a need, right? And I'd like to get to a place where, I tell my organizers all the time, you can turn your phone off. You can turn your phone off, like, you don't need to answer, like, enjoy your family and enjoy those things. But I know the reality is we can't, because quite literally, if we don't do our work, people don't survive. People die. And there is a seriousness to it that I really hope that the world starts to understand, especially in the times we're in. I'll say about a year ago, I started immediately seeing a reduction in funding. Like, people are scared to fund organizing. People are scared to fund racial justice. People want to fund service. And I had someone withdraw promised funding to us. And they then told me that, well, we're going to go a different route. And then I found out it was, let's fund a food pantry. Forget why so many people are hungry. Let's, which is what organizing is about, is like stopping the people from being hungry to begin with. But we'll rather them get into situations of harm and then just try and provide just a little bit of relief. It has been extremely difficult that we've had to cut staff, that we have struggled a lot, and like every single person is wearing multiple hats, especially me right now. And it's national. It's not just in New Jersey. Like, we're part of 2 national networks, Live Free and Faith in Action, and everyone is seeing it. One of my colleagues had more than half her budget cut, and she runs like the largest social polls in the country. And they cut her funding. And in New Jersey, things like funding for like civic engagement, like, I've never been able to get civic engagement funding, really, because we refuse to do transactional civic engagement. We want to, actually build power, right? And develop folks. It's just so hard. And then the amounts, if people are giving out funding, it's extremely small. And you have to jump through so many hoops to either apply or to do the report afterwards, that if you're an organization with very few staff, how do you find the time? How do you find the time to do it in a sufficient way? It's almost impossible. We're really, really, really hurting. Best way to get in touch is either by calling, which is 908-477-1111, via email, Charlene, CHARLENE, at faithinnewjersey.org, or on any of our social medias. We are on all of them except for the TikTok, as I like to call it. And you can always reach us there.